County, 101.1 FM and AM 1160 WCCS.
It's Indiana in the Morning. He is Mike Baker. The former coroner, former commissioner of Indiana County, Mike Baker, is with us this morning. Now we add the title author to Mike's resume. His new book is called That's Gonna Leave a Mark-Chronicles of an Appalachian Coroner. And our visit this morning presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. I couldn't wait for 8:10. I had to get him on a little bit earlier this morning. So we've already visited a little bit talking about your book, which goes over some of, and I think I need to point it out, just some of the many, many cases in which you were involved in your career as a coroner for Indiana County. It really is amazing to me that such a small county has so many major cases.
So many things over the years, and I was in that position either as chief deputy coroner or as coroner for 30 years, and just saw thousands of incidents and cases, and they've only increased since then.
Yeah. It's amazing. So you sat down when? Last year?
Yeah, sometime early last year and got started.
Mm-hmm. Had you kept a running record of cases, or did it require a lot of research and memory work for you?
Yeah, well, both. It took a lot of me deciding which cases that I wanted to actually feature in the book, and then to go back to my records, I was fortunate enough to be able to call Jerry Overman, who's the coroner now, and go out to his office and actually go through my old records, and fill in the blanks for the stuff that wasn't still in my head.
Yeah, but there is so many. You're right. You've got the sword death by swords. That was actually after.
That was after me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You've got all of those. The Lewis case out our way. Just so many cases in which you were involved. We talked previously about the Yelnick case, which has become again an open case because Kevin Voldy's appeal is currently on the active court list for Indiana County. So he's got a PCRA hearing, I believe, coming up in June for Indiana County. But sometimes these cases don't just get locked away.
Right. And people aren't going to be sent to prison for the rest of their lives and never say another word about it.
Yeah.
They're going to do everything that they can to clear themselves.
So as you began, obviously with all of these cases, you had to put them in an order. And so how did you determine, well, this is going to be the first one I talk about. This is going to be the grabber. And this one here I'm going to put in, maybe it's a lighter case. And how did you order them?
Well, one of the things I didn't want to do was, and even though the book says Chronicles of Appalachian Coroner, I didn't want it to be in chronological order.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to take the cases, like you say, and kind of cherry pick them and say, well, this is one I think that'll get somebody's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And the first chapter in the book is the one where the individual accidentally discharged the rifle in the kitchen of his home, and the bullet went through all the way up through the bed in the bedroom and killed the lady that was in bed. That was on New Year's Eve in about 2004 or something like that, I believe.
Yeah. And that was here in Indiana, right?
That was a little north of here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. But it's fascinating as you go through the cases. So many of them, they jump right out off the page at you because everything comes flooding back to you.
Exactly. And the good thing about the way that the book is put together in that regard is that each of the you could start in any chapter in this book, and it doesn't matter what was in the chapter ahead of it.
Yeah.
Because it's a collection of short stories, so to speak. And each of the cases, is one chapter, and that chapter stands on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the gin mill case, we were discussing that previously. The gin mill case was actually a triple homicide.
Yes.
That there was a suicide then at the end of it.
Exactly.
By the person who had taken the lives of the three people at the gin mill in Robinson.
Right, and that was really a case that I still remember, of course, very well to this day. We had 2 males and a female who were killed in the bar, with shotgun wounds. And then later on, the shooter was found dead of suicide in his home. And that was, of course, like you said, all in Robinson. And one of the things that sticks out for me in that case so much is that I can remember going into the home of the shooter whenever his body was discovered, and they had already surrounded that property for quite some time, for hours, trying to get him to come out. And the place was full of tear gas. And when I went in to make pronouncement of death in that case, it was almost unbearable. You couldn't even practically breathe in.
So you didn't mask up to go in?
I did not, because I arrived back from the first 3 autopsies, and immediately they said, "Hey, come over here. We need you to go upstairs."
That stuff's still in your body, you know.
Oh, let me tell you. I know that the next day, whenever I arrived for the autopsy on that case, when I got into the morgue, the first thing that hit me was tear gas, because it was still in his clothing and on his body and so on. It just doesn't go away.
Yeah, that would be in his lungs and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. All right. So there are some stories that are even more heartbreaking than others. Anytime there's death involved, somebody's heart is broken, and the sadness is obviously a big part of what a coroner has to deal with every day. The Amish story of the woman who suffered the burns,
Right,
is to me especially heartbreaking, because A, the burns and how painful that must have been, but B, the lack of treatment and the home remedies that obviously did not work in her case.
And that's exactly right. There was a home remedy applied there. Like I said in the book, there was salve all over her body, and her body was wrapped in what looked like seaweed from head to toe, every square inch. And she did not receive any kind of medical treatment or treatment for pain. I think her burns were unsurvivable, even if she had definitive treatment at a burn center. But I think that there would have been pain control applied there, and I can't imagine the suffering that had to go on for that. And the other piece of that, the humanitarian piece of that whole thing, is this was a mom who had 6 kids. Yeah, she left them behind, and it was tragic the way that the way that the whole thing happened. She was doing laundry, and she had a large tub in the middle of the room, and she had set fire underneath of it to heat the water up. And when it wasn't obviously hot enough for her, she took kerosene and splashed on the fire. Yeah. And there was just an explosion right after that. Yeah. She got caught up in it.
Some of the cases that you chronicle in your book, and again, it is called That's Going to Leave a Mark by Mike Baker, former Indiana County Coroner and Commissioner. Some of the stories involve people ingesting things and breathing in things. The Blackwater case.
Right.
That's something that, the science behind it was a fascinating aspect of that story.
Yeah, that was a case where an individual somehow drove a riding lawnmower into a sewage settling pond at a sewage plant and drowned. And, of course, inhaled and ingested all of that sewage water, so to speak, that black water. That's why that chapter is called "Oh, Black Water." Yeah. And still, I don't think anybody to this day knows exactly why he ended up there. We did an autopsy to make sure that he hadn't experienced a heart attack or a stroke or something like that made him accidentally turn into that pond, and we didn't find any evidence of that. So it could be it was just slippery, and he accidentally went in there.
Yeah, and the silo stories.
Yes.
Going into a silo. That's something that people who aren't a part of the farming community don't understand.
Right.
That a silo is full of noxious gas.
Exactly. Silage will give off gases that displace oxygen. And if you don't use the silo blower fan and so on before you go in there, it can be pretty predictable that you're going to run into some bad atmosphere in there. Yeah. And it could take your life real quick.
Now, down through the years, of course, you work, and we're talking with Mike Baker. His book is called That's Going to Leave a Mark, and just reading about these cases brings them back to mind, and I don't know if I should use the word enjoyable read because
It's dark.
that's not the appropriate word to use, but it is a really fascinating read because you get to revisit these stories and see some of the stuff that we don't hear about on the news because they're the science aspect of it that are fascinating to me. But you work with, as a coroner, you work with all manner of experts.
Absolutely.
Other coroners, chemists, police officers, forensic scientists, they all come together to piece together what, for you, when you come out, it's a body that has suffered some sort of trauma that has taken the life of that person. And so from that standpoint of it, the science standpoint of it, it must be a really, really fascinating world to inhabit.
Well, it really is. The science part of it was probably the part, if you can enjoy a job like this, it was probably the part that I appreciated the most. There were other tougher parts, notifying families and so on, but the forensic science piece of it and those parts of it were always very fascinating to me. And a lot of things people don't realize. For example, there might have been a fire, but you don't know, how am I going to determine if this person was dead before the fire or if they were alive during the fire? Well, I'll check for carbon monoxide in the blood. If they were breathing at the time of the fire, you're going to have carbon monoxide. I had many that had no carbon monoxide in their body, so I knew they were not breathing at the time of the fire. It's something that had happened prior to the family.
Prior to it. It's a really emotional job, too, and I think that we need to point that out, that it can take a toll mentally, emotionally, and physically on somebody to go through all of that stress and tension, which a coroner must do.
Well, absolutely. You're right. And I was fortunate during my tenure as coroner. I always had a great relationship with firefighters and police officers and so on. And you wouldn't believe how often those guys did a lot of the heavy lifting for me.
Sure.
They were just Johnny on the spot every time that you needed them.
Yeah.
But you were saying about it taking an emotional toll, and it does. And the book will tell you that all the marks that I'm talking about when I say that's going to leave a mark weren't just left on the victim. Some were left on me.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that comes to mind for me the most is the chapter in the book where I talk about the lady who told me I had no right to come to her house and tell her the worst news she ever heard and then just get out and get in my truck and go back like it's another day at the office. Yeah. She's right. I never felt that way about any of those cases that I handled, but I can see how somebody would think that, hey, this is routine for him. He comes in and wrecks my life, and then he gets in his truck and he leaves.
Yeah. Wow, that is something else. All right, so the book is called That's Going to Leave a Mark, Chronicles of an Appalachian Coroner. Mike Baker, our guest here this morning on Indiana in the Morning, and we're out of time. We could go on for another hour or so.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
That's what I was going to ask you next. How do I get this book? Amazon and Barnes & Noble?
Yeah.
Those are the ways to do it.
Or PM me on Facebook, and I can get you one.
Or you could just give me a call right now at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS, and we'll do that during this sports break here. And as we do so, Mike has even agreed if you call right now and you're the person who gets the book, he'll even autograph it for you. How about that?
Absolutely.
So give me a call, 479-1160, 349-WCCS. We've got a copy of the book just for you. It's Indiana in the Morning, and it's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. Boomer Sports next.
This is Boomer Esiason with the Sports Minute, sponsored by Prevagen made for your brain. Rob Manford, eat your heart out. The barnstorming Savannah Bananas sold out 81,000-seat Memorial Stadium for Saturday's Banana Ball exhibition at Clemson. What's more, no Banana Ball games last longer than exactly 2 hours. I'm Boomer Esiason.
David is a real Prevagen user, and this is his story.
Nice to meet you.